My name is Willy Bolander. I study influence, persuasion, and leadership in selling and sales management, and I teach people how to sell. In this podcast, we'll talk to some of the world's top sales leaders and see what we can learn from them. Welcome to the Sales Lab. Start with a little bit about your pathway to get to where you are now, and then maybe explain to us what GHX does and how they do it.
Okay, yeah. So I'm product of the Industrial Distribution Department. Very proud to be a grad of class of '89. And I started out in technical sales. I started out with a fluid power company in the Southwest that you guys know. And I worked with them in the sales group. And back in those days, training was 90 days in a box of catalogs and you were on the road. So it was very fast paced, and I did that pretty well for a few years, and then I got the opportunity to teach it and to be a regional sales manager, and had a group of folks that I would support in that capacity, and then I got pretty good at that, and I got an opportunity to do some other things within the corporate management, and I worked there for 26 years, and then I needed to branch out and learn something new. And so I went to a hose distributor that we have later purchased. That's part of the Sunsource family now. But along came the guys at Sunsource and had a very compelling story and just an incredible group of leaders there. And they took me under the wing, and so to speak, and have worked with me over the past 8 or 9, 10 years now. And Sunsource has really ballooned into a giant company, but never has lost that small town feel, the relationship embrace with the leadership, the sales management, the coaching. And so that's what I do today. I serve as the vice president of sales for GHX, which is a Sunsource company. We are the anchor for the fluid conveyance business unit. And so that's all. What that means is that's all hose, plumbing, all the things that connect to the pumps and motors and valves. They all have to have hose between them. But then there's also sealing opportunities. And so, GHX, you think about that name, it's gasket hose experts. And that's where it came from. And so when you're dealing with the businesses that we deal with, you're trying not to put the wrong thing in the wrong application. You got to make sure that it's compatible from a metallurgy perspective, from a sealing perspective. It's very technical around chemical interaction with the materials, and then there's the fluid dynamics when you're designing a hydraulic hose layout and making sure that you've fit all of the stamped. That's an acronym we use when we're talking to engineering folks, and that's it's very technical and oriented to make sure that we're putting the right products to use in the right way, so that the customer's equipment has the best life and the best capabilities.
This content is brought to you by the TIES Sales Showdown. That's the Technical, Industrial, and Engineering Student Sales Showdown, hosted right here at Texas A&M University. We have over 200 engineering students taking sales classes every semester and a growing minor program in technical sales. These students are smart enough for STEM and savvy enough for sales, and the TIES Showdown allows them to demonstrate their selling skills in a role-play competition where industry partners, like you, serve as judges and provide them coaching feedback. If you're hiring for technical, industrial, or engineering sales roles anytime in the next couple of years, this is an event you can't miss. You can learn more at tx.ag/ties. That's tx.ag/TIES. Hope you can join us. And a customer might be doing what that requires them to move fluid around? Are we talking? So, I mean, in my mind, the first thing that comes up is beverages. I'd imagine that's not an exhaustive list of what you guys do.
Yeah, so there's all kinds of media. If you can imagine, there's liquids for fuel. There's liquids that are gas or liquid form. There's different chemicals that are in different chemical plants and refineries. There's, a barrel of oil and all of the, sub parts of that that have to be separated. And so it's a ton of different types of media that go through plumbing and through hose. And so, our customer base, we serve really three different marketplaces. So the downstream and refinery business. So all those chemical plants, all the refineries, they're all cooking a barrel of oil down to its base parts, and they're separating it, and they're sending the things for plastics in one direction. They're sending things for inert gases in another direction, and they're sending things for, fabric assembly and different things like that, and, rubber tires, whatever the case may be. All of these different things, resins, come out of that downstream market. And then we also serve, upstream oil and gas. So when you're doing exploration or you're doing drilling, you're doing well service, all of those companies, they're operating hydraulic equipment. Yeah. And so they're fracking wells, that's a slurry mix of mud and chemicals, and that's a media also. And so we have to handle that. So we sell frac hose and different things like that for that environment. And then, everything in between. So from food and beverage, which you mentioned, and from agricultural equipment, from construction equipment, from space exploration, all of the space rocket, SpaceX handling equipment runs on hydraulics, and some of it runs on high temperature type media, which requires what we use is metal hose. And so we've got to design and fabricate and put together. We're an ISO company, so ISO 9001. So we fabricate and manufacture some of these products for our suppliers and with our suppliers to fit into those applications.
And so I have to ask this because I was just talking earlier with a gentleman from Daily Thermetrics, and we were talking all about temperature controlled, temperature sensors and all this. Do you work with those guys at all? Is there any interaction there?
So the Sunsource companies, they have different business units, and that is one of them, is a fluid process and instrumentation group. Okay. And so, yes, they have all sorts of flow measurement, temperature sensors, different things that, will automate valve actuation, things like that. Okay. And we've got a number of distributors around the country that they all still operate with the same company name, although they're a Sunsource company. We don't change the name of those organizations. We, look for local brands that have strategic value and that have built a strong name and a strong technical sales force. And those are the companies we want to join forces with. So that's part of the model that we use and that Sunsource has grown with. And, all of them have some technical expertise required when a customer needs to accomplish something a little different, or they want to improve a process or make their equipment better. That's where we sit down with them and start trying to understand what their goals are. And, we call ourselves the expert fit at GHX because we focus in on what they're trying to accomplish and all of the things, the cost savings, the performance improvements, all of those things have to be detailed out as we pick the right products for the right application.
I'd imagine some of the business involves people who are already doing things, but they need to replace hoses. They just, it's just kind of ordering. Mm-hmm. But other projects are, all the way from a brainstorming, into making this come to fruition. What's the percentage of the, business that you guys do in each of those categories?
Well, so for GHX, we're probably 70% MRO. And so we're out there, supporting customers to replace an item, to identify improvements, upgrade items, things like that. That's where there's really, a lot of opportunity for us. The other part is original equipment manufacturers, where they're building equipment. All of the petrochem and refinery business, a lot of that is MRO. We work with contractors that are building new plants or expanding plants. So that's a part of that business, which could qualify as a OEM because it's new builds. But it's really, on the ground in the plant working to replace product. They have these different events called turnarounds. And
Mm.
so each number of years at some interval, the plant will shut down, take it all apart, and clean it up and put it all back together. And when they do that, that's a great opportunity for us. We're selling gaskets and bolting, and not the small fasteners you'd find at Home Depot, but we're talking about, different bolts that are 2-inch thick, that could
Yeah.
be, a foot long, and they require torquing equipment to put them in, and they can be in all kinds of exotic materials with exotic coatings on them, to live in the environment that they are working. So those are big events. It's 24/7 with our salespeople during
Yeah.
those events and our operations teams, because everything's scheduled. You got heavy equipment being brought in, you got contractors being brought in, you got to have the parts ready to go. So those turnaround services that we do, and we have an entire group that focuses there to help support and lead those operations. That's a big deal for us. And so it's obviously it's execution, but it's also having the right products in the right place.
Yeah.
And so that's key.
Well, and I guess because the alternative is if you don't get into those turnarounds, you'd be asking somebody to shut down their operations to put in a part, or I mean, it's just too much trouble at that point if you're not in those
Yeah.
windows.
Yeah, you have to have a compelling story, and you got to work years in advance sometimes to demonstrate that you can bring that value and that execution, so the customer trusts that we're going to be able to perform when they need it. And so we've got a long history of doing that. That's what we do. Our training, when we build technical salespeople and continue on their development path, that's a big part of our program. And so we have a very robust, 1-year program where we're, hiring ID grads and others from different parts of the country and different engineering capacities. And we're bringing them in, and we're doing a 1-year program. It's all technically driven, but it's also how we do business.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of product training. There's a lot of suppliers that we lean on for that, but there's a lot that we do internally to help them get ready to go out and demonstrate that they can bring value to the customer.
Well, and you've said one of the magic words that catches my ears a couple times in the last couple of minutes, which is value. So, can you give us some specific, concrete ways that GHX and Sunsource are providing this value? I mean, so the MRO is kind of replacement, and okay, I'm keeping you going, but how else?
Yeah, so for GHX, and I can also speak just a little bit for Sunsource, a couple of different programs that we do. We have a hose management program, and that is a value that we bring to customers that have a lot of those assets in-house. So it could be a refinery, it could be a chemical plant, could be a large manufacturing facility with a lot of different types of plastic injection molding equipment or blow molding equipment. And they have a lot of these different assets throughout the facility. And what we do is we bring a team of people in, and we go around throughout. We have suppliers join us in this, and we document everything that they have in the plant. And then what we do is we go back, we look at the applications, we make sure that the hose or the gasket or the expansion joint is still in workable order, right? It's still in good shape. We identify those that have problems. We start analyzing, what could be causing the wear in that item. And then we have some software programs within our organization. One is called GHX Tracker. And what we do with that is we upload all those asset numbers and descriptions into it. We load in some different parameters that the customer wants to use for inspections. And then when those things come up for inspections, it's a notification system to the customer, but it acts like a portal where they can go in and they can see what their assets look like from life cycle perspective. And then when they need to be tested, we have mobile hose testing that goes out and on site can recertify those hoses. We can do updated inspections on those other products that you just don't take out of service. But yeah, we have those different types. We also do VMI. And so those are some different things where we can come in and manage the inventory. We replenish the stock levels to make sure that, in the case of an OEM, that they never run out. They've always got what they need when they're putting something together. When their customer calls in the middle of the night, they know that they've got, backup inventory there. And so those are some other value based programs that we offer. But then it's really the technical value that we bring, because they can ask us about different types of applications and different types of chemical interaction with these materials, and we can lean on our resources and our team to go in and educate them on different parts of their business perhaps they need more of.
To what extent does any individual salesperson need to be the expert versus, knowing a lot? I mean, being fairly expert, but also having resources within the company that they can draw on, or other team members that might have more expertise in one thing or another. Is it a lone wolf? Everybody has to be the expert, or is there some flexibility in that?
Well, there's absolutely a lot of flexibility in that. There's times, so salespeople wear a lot of different hats, right? Sometimes they're wearing the technical sales hat. Sometimes they're just running around delivering product, right? They're solving problems. They're working with the team, but it's by no means a lone wolf type job, in the fact that we have product expertise. We have product managers. We have a wealth of individuals with decades of experience to lean on. And so everybody's got a market manager or an area manager or a branch manager that has quite a bit of experience that they can, use as a sounding board, that they can, bounce off ideas, things like that. Then we have our supplier partners that are some of the world's best, and their engineering teams. And so, it's a team approach across the board, and it really takes a village to operate as a well-oiled machine. And that experience you don't get overnight. And so when new people join our organization, it's a little intimidating, when you get out there and you see all the different applications, and you realize at that point you really don't know what you're doing and what you're looking at yet. And it takes sales call after sales call after sales call, training opportunities along the way. But what I learned early in life is that when you sell it, the customer expects you to know how to help them get it started up. And so that's where you really begin learning the products. And over time, you make some mistakes, and you have some scar tissue there that you learn from, and you get better at it. And we help that along.
Well, as I'm having more of these conversations and really trying to dissect this question, what is technical sales? What's technical about it? What's different about a technical sale compared to a non-technical traditional sale? And one of the things that keeps being reiterated as I'm talking to folks is, we really have to back up our claims. It's not sufficient to get somebody excited and slap them on the back and get them to a point where they're ready to buy from us, and even perform the transaction. Then it's okay. We have to put it in. We have to make it work. There's accountability and all of this, and it's a little bit more required on that front than a transfer of enthusiasm or some of these things that characterize other sales contexts. So
when we misapply a product, and we haven't done this in the 5 or so years that I've been with GHX, there things can blow up. Things can catch fire. And so, you misapply a hydraulic hose and heavy equipment, people can get hurt. And so we take it very seriously that we have to equip our sales team and then back them up with smart people to look over their shoulder and to check their work to make sure that we're doing the right thing by the customer, the environment, the community, that we're doing a good job there. And so, you employ lots of different tools, different calculators and different programs, and mathematics are all over it, right? And with fluid dynamics, you're taking things that you learn from fluid power classes and things like that, and you're utilizing those in our business. And so, We don't call our folks sales engineers, but we do have engineers on staff, both at Sunsource and at GHX. So if we do need to do a deep review and have a, professional engineer with a licensed engineer look at something, we do that. We have those capabilities. So yeah, it's a lot of different people, but like I did early in my career, you sit down and you've got to work through an opportunity with a customer, and you start with, what do you want to move? How heavy is it? How fast do you want to move it? And which direction and how far does it need to go? And you start getting the performance, wish list together. And then you start picking the products and the power source that's going to be required. And you start putting it on paper and you draw a circuit. And they don't do that on paper anymore necessarily, but you know what I mean. They use the drawing programs and
Yeah.
get it on the screen so that everybody can start looking through it and make sure it's right.
So if I'm thinking about starting a career in this direction, what specific technical knowledge, analytical skills, I mean, what would be great for me to possess that would help me get a jump start into this field?
A natural curiosity of how things work.
Mm.
That's a trait that most of our most successful people have. Those that grew up in an environment like on a farm or a ranch where they've actually seen hydraulics and fluid power at work, that experience is valuable. They understand how these things operate and have maybe even turned wrenches. Those that change the oil in their car and change the brake pads and do things like that, they are very successful. And so, yeah, somebody with a mechanical aptitude coming into the organization is going to have a leg up. Doesn't mean that's the only way to do it. I'm a product from my boss used to say that when I joined the company and at 22 years old, that I didn't know the difference between an open-ended and a closed-ended wrench, and which is not necessarily true, but I didn't have that experience in growing up. I had a work ethic, but I didn't have the mechanical experience. But I still worked my way into being successful by outworking my competition. And so any person that's coming out of school today that may not possess those things, they can still acquire them. They've proven that they can learn new things by going through your program, and so it's just a continual learning. And so if they have a thirst and a curiosity for those kind of things, then they'll learn it and they'll apply it and they'll go out and call on customers and they'll ask a lot of questions and grow and develop, as they take that journey.
So value comes up a lot in these conversations. Curiosity comes up more and more in these conversations, which I love because, yeah, I mean, it can even make up for a lot of things. I'd say, you might not have the innate intelligence, you might not know the solution right out of the gate, but if you're curious, you can be driven to go find the solution.
Yeah,
and that gets you pretty far. So would somebody in this field need to have taken, courses in fluid dynamics and fluid power and things like this?
It's certainly a plus, but we have folks that have gone through different types of engineering, whether it's chemical engineering, mechanical engineering. We hire them from all walks of life. And so really we'll coach and teach what they don't know when they get on board. But yeah, all of those are valuable. Back in the old days when ID was first started, we all took a welding class. Yeah. And believe it or not, it's still, there's things that I draw on from that when I see somebody, doing that kind of work. So, I think that there's all sorts of different things that they can draw from during going through different curriculums. You mentioned something a while ago. I just wanted to touch.
For sure.
The fact that curiosity is important. What really is important is showing an interest in what your customer does and trying to understand what they're trying to accomplish and how to help that individual look good and do a good job for their company, their boss, that's where you're really building trust. And if you do those kind of things, then success in technical sales is in your future. And so, technical is a very broad word, like you mentioned, very, very widely used. It can mean lots of different things, but at the end of the day, you're helping somebody utilize and identify something that maybe they don't use every day, that they don't touch every day. And so you become the resident expert, even with a low, level of tenure, you're still maybe the expert in the room. And so, they're looking to you to teach them how to use it and to pick the right things. And to do that, you need to understand the variables and the different options and be able to, feed on and reach out to different resources to do that.
I think sometimes when I'm speaking to somebody who is not involved in sales or technical sales or commerce or, when I say something like, well, it's about helping people. It's about finding a way to provide a fundamental service to them. It's about taking something that they could possibly do themselves, but making it quicker and faster and more precise and safer, avoiding catastrophes. And I think there's a lot of maybe literal or figurative eye rolling that goes on when I'm explaining this, and I think it's because everybody's had some retail experience or something that they weren't happy with, but it's when you're in these technical contexts, it's no, seriously, if I'm really good at BSing somebody and I get them to buy a part that isn't the right part and people get hurt, that's a big problem. It's a big problem for them. It's a big problem for me. It's a big problem for the longevity of my career and my company. It's not an exaggeration. It's not poetry that we layer on to our mundane job to say, no, we're out here trying to find ways of doing things better and getting people on board with these things and ways to help them. That said, I guess the question that comes naturally from that is, if it's obviously a better way to do it, why do they need the salesperson's help? Why can't customers figure out how to do all this and improve their own situation? Why do they need a bunch of salespeople running around to help them?
Yeah. I guess I would fall back on the fact that maybe it's in a capacity or a category of product that they don't look at every day, that they don't stay, up to speed on new developments and new technologies and new enhancements that we get from our suppliers. Our world-class suppliers are always doing innovative things with new products. So there could be a better mousetrap that's been built since the last time that customer looked at that particular part of a piece of equipment. And you see it all the time with products that they get sunlight damage, UV damage to them, right? They're out in the elements, and you look at it and say that doesn't look anything like what we sell today. And in many ways it's not, and so there's different manufacturing techniques and things that change along the way. That's our job, is to go out and educate our customers on, hey, did you hear about this? This is something new. Have you ever looked at one of these? Have you ever tried this? Why do you use what you use today? And surely there's a long story around, the trial and error that they went through to end up where they are. And that's often why they don't change. Why they don't want to change is because they're afraid to. This thing's been working. And so you've got to be able to identify a need, sometimes develop a need that they don't think they have, a latent need. They got things that you've got to uncover there. And by going out and being an educator and a trusted advisor to them, you build that trust. They start to listen to what you have to say, and you may be, bringing them something that completely changes their company and the trajectory it's on, in a good way, in a positive way.
Well, and so you're using a lot of terms that catch my attention. So you said a latent need. Can you give me an example in your context? What type of a latent need might one of your customers or prospects be having?
Well, if I'm trying to think of an example of one, but if a customer has been using, I'll give you an example. We have customers that replace a product after a certain number of hours. It's in a steel plant, for instance, and this particular item will last through 2 or 3 shifts, and that's it.
Hmm.
And then they've got to replace it because it's the heat is taking a toll on it. Well, we go in and offer a specific product with an enhancement on it that actually has a sheath over it, a steel sheath over it, that allows it to weather that heat far better. And we manufacture and have pioneered this product in our Memphis branch, and so that customer has been resolved that, hey, I get 3 shifts out of this thing, and then I got to change it. And we go in there and say, try this. And they put it on and they get a month out of it.
Hmm.
And they said, wow, I didn't even realize that we had that option. And
Yeah.
so that's something new. That was a need they didn't know that they had, that a solution that we could bring to the table. Other times you're introducing something and you're talking about a new product, and the light bulb goes off in their head and say, whoa, I have that situation. I've got one of those out back. Let's go take a look at it. And then you walk out there, and through the discussion, you hit on some points of performance points that really resonate with the customer, and uncover a need that he didn't know he had there.
Well, those are great examples, and I think back to the way that we at least initially train or educate sales students, and most companies I'm aware of start at this point too, is engaging in a discovery process by asking questions. And yet, as we're getting the trainee comfortable with that process, it comes to this natural point where you have to say, oh, by the way, this isn't the end of the story, because there are sometimes when you're asking questions and you can't get what you're trying to get. They don't know. They don't have the experience. They don't have the expertise. They see something as a necessary inconvenience, right? Like the hose. They don't understand that there's a better option now. They're operating on best practices from maybe not 50 years ago, maybe just a couple of years ago. But things have
Right.
changed so much that there's a better way to do it. And so you ask them questions, and I'm picturing this hose situation. Well, hey, tell me about this part of your process. Tell me about these hoses. Is everything, are you having any challenges, any frustrations? And it might not even occur to them to respond to these sort of traditional sales questions by saying, oh yeah, it's a total pain that I have to replace this hose every few shifts, because it's just a part of reality. It just is what it is to them. They might not even think to say it. So this is very interesting. So you truly are coming in and providing an educational service to them and saying, hey, here's something you never. Let me blow your mind. That thing that you hate doing, that you've just resolved to being a necessary part of life, we can take it off the table.
Yeah.
That's pretty
Yeah. And
fascinating.
you learn that by going on sales calls and
Mm.
getting involved with different types of customers, which is the beauty of our business, and many others, is every day is a little different. You see a farming application, and you take something you learn there and use it in a steel mill, and you feed off the different things, and you can be the bridge between industry solutions. I used to do this as a salesperson, but you talked about discovery questions and things like that. The one that everybody always uses, what keeps you up at night, right? And
Yeah,
I wouldn't advise you using that. Everybody's heard that.
for sure.
But I used to walk in and say, what are you working on today? What do they got you working on? And he'd say, well, here's the issue I've got on the table right now. And if it was something, that I could help with, it certainly opened the door to start talking about it. If it was completely unrelated, well, I just sit there and listen and go, man, that's tough. Hey, let's talk about this, and
Yeah.
we redirect the conversation. But they appreciated the interest that you showed in their day and their workload and whatever they had as a problem on their radar.
back to the curiosity,
Yeah, build a
or
relationship.
the genuine empathy, the concern. I forget, there's some TV show or something where the characters are saying, well, you have to be very interested in what the other person's interested in. It's okay. How do I pretend to be interested? No, no, you have to be interested. I don't understand. I don't get it. So
Yeah.
that's I mean that is the authenticity of that certainly shines through. So if I'm starting off at GHX or Sunsource, what does that look like for me early career? Am I in training for a bit? Am I training and in the field? Can you kind of walk us through that process?
Yeah, our onboarding plan, and we continually work on it as a management team. We're always trying to improve it and create additional touch points for other people within the organization. The more you see, the more you understand. But what we do with our new hires is we bring them in and for lack of a better term, we teach them the business from the back door forward. And so what we want them to do is learn the business. While they're doing it, they're learning what each job in the facility does, with the ultimate goal of understanding what the process looks like from order to cash, right? So how do we
Yeah.
get things done within our organization? Who does what? And to understand how tough each one of those jobs is, you have to actually ride shotgun with them, right? You got to get in
Yeah.
there and roll up your sleeves. So we do that for the first probably 60 days. And it's rotational through multiple departments and multiple parts of the fabrication, different manufacturing cells that we have. And during that time, you're also interacting with, the inside staff, the inside salespeople, the operations management, sales management. And then we start doing some ride-alongs to get you out in front of customers to watch our current sales force, the veterans out there, do different things, like go on cold calls with a veteran salesperson, to go on and see their core customers. Everybody wants to take a visitor, somebody that they've got mentoring or whatever, out to their best customers. But sometimes you want to go to the ones you can't get arrested in.
Yeah.
You want to go to the ones that keep slamming the door in your face, and show them that part of the job too, and how you try to work through that and overcome it. Because you never know, the next time you knock on the door will be the time you get in. And so that starts, and then they spend a lot of time learning how to find information, right? Being
Hmm.
able to do a quote, being able to find some inventory, being able to identify a part in the warehouse. All of those things are important, because when you're starting out and you have a target account, for instance, and you're not the incumbent, you're just the new guy, right? You're trying to win a new customer. You have to be ready for your opportunity, and then it never comes, in the middle of the day, in the middle of the week, with advance warning and an email.
Of course.
Sometimes it's 5:30 in the afternoon on a Friday. You get the call from the guy you've been trying to get a meeting with, and
Yeah.
you've got to be able to log in and get some things started, right? Have the first couple of questions ready to go, and then you can go get some help on question number 3 and number 4. But you got to get something started. You got to give that guy some level of confidence that you're on it. You can start the ball rolling, and you can begin finding information. And if you haven't done that part, if you haven't done it, you can't do it when it's, the weekend or the middle of the night, or what have you. And so we try to equip the individuals with the ability to do that when they're rolled out into the field and start calling on customers.
Okay.
So that's, in a nutshell, that's 1 year.
Yeah.
That's what it takes. And it takes a long time. Adult learning is about doing, right? And so you got to get in there and do it. And so repetition is important
Mm.
with adult learning. And so that's what we structure our training program around.
Let me ask you about how much research you put into going in and calling on somebody that you're, a cold call, or somebody that you're really trying to get into for the, or maybe have a simple relationship, but, there's significant new potential with this relationship. Are you doing a lot of research before the call? Is it kind of a, let's just get in there and see?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I would say it's from, all across the spectrum.
Mm,
If it's a target account and it's that a lot about the customer, maybe not everything about the customer, then your regional manager, your market manager, the guy that is responsible, you feed off of his knowledge and his experience. Tell me what you know about this type of customer.
mm,
Yeah, everybody can go on a website and look at that, but there's only so much you can learn about what they do from reading a website.
yeah.
You can get a little knowledgeable. To find out what people do in there, you can use LinkedIn. That's a tool that is really grown, and so sales professionals use that. And then reaching out to your classmates, your ex-students that are all out there, and networking with them to find out what does this kind of a company do. But at the end of the day, nothing happens until you knock on the door.
Mm,
And so at some point, you've got to, whatever you can find out, you got to walk in the door and say, this is who I am. This is what we do. Tell me more about your business and the needs that you have, and try to get a dialogue going to uncover some of those discovery questions and get some answers. And then it's always about, what do I gonna come back and talk to you about next time? I gotta come up with a reason for another call,
yeah.
because most salespeople will quit after about the third or fourth sales call. They'll
Yeah.
stop trying. But you don't get your first opportunity until about call number 8. And so, if you're not successful, that's sometimes the reason why. You got to go knock on doors.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's it's always quite a mystery, of we all have heard the term paralysis analysis, or
Yeah.
yeah, you can do too much research. You can also be a little too comfortable throwing your body into a situation, not knowing anything and just crossing your fingers. Well, that's probably not best practice either. But that's tricky.
Well, things have changed, right, in the last decade, 2 decades. Before 9/11, you could go in almost every door
Mm,
and you could get access to somebody. Even if you're wandering in, there's no gatekeeper, there's no receptionist. You go down the hall and say, hello, hello, anybody here? I can't tell you how many times I've done that. But nowadays it's a little tougher. There's guard shacks and there's barbed wire, razor wire. And, if you don't have a name of somebody or an appointment, you can't even drive onto the property.
yeah.
And so you got to do some research and you got to do some work there. We have different tools that we utilize. Our marketing department as a wealth of information that can help bridge some of those gaps to get you started. And sometimes we've got a sales guy that I just love him. I'll call him Bill for now, but he's gotten really, really good at making friends with the guard shack person, to the point where he would bring them breakfast
Nice.
and visit with them for 10 minutes. Says, hey, you're on my way to the office. I just wanted to stop in. Here's a cup of coffee and a donut, that kind of deal. Can you please tell me who I can call that's in this department? And after a couple of times, they actually will stop what they're doing and say, yeah, let me give you a hand.
All right.
And they'll
Yeah.
help you out. It's a people
Absolutely.
business. And yeah, it's uncomfortable and it's awkward. And, sales is that way. You got to do things, get out of your own comfort zone and,
Yep.
and find ways to befriend others. And yeah, you got to get a break. You got to catch a break, get the right phone call
Yep.
or name and number.
I'm trying to think of other clever questions to ask you, but it's the end of the day on a Friday for you as well. I'm afraid my cleverness may be diminishing, but I mean, I think you've given us we've got a lot of good stuff packed into this interview so far. I mean,
Well,
you're
I hope it's
saying
helpful.
a lot
Hope
of
it's
the
helpful.
same things that we'd want to reiterate with the students, that we want the students to hear, that I tell the students. But when your professor says it, it's one thing. When other people confirm it, it's a whole nother. So I think it's been really good. And actually, you'd mentioned this marketing department. Given that with the new tech sales minor, one of the new courses is this industrial marketing course, which has
Ah.
been an interesting adventure that Professor Ruzio is teaching. And tell me what your marketing department does, what that looks like.
Well, so Sunsource, it's a shared service
Okay.
across all businesses. When we join forces with a particular company, if they have a marketing individual, like a marketing manager or a marketing, lead, if you will, somebody that handles collateral and advertising and things like that, we put them dotted line into the marketing team with Sunsource, and so they do a lot of different things about identifying new markets for us to go after, for identifying the products that are used. So we have 600 salespeople across the country in lots of different types of industries. They reach out to a lot of them and say, "Hey, do you have customers that do this? We're trying to identify, this market. We believe that there's a growing market here." We use all of the different things like MDM and ITR to tell us who's spending money and what part of the business cycle they're in. But at the end of the day, our marketing group has to help us identify those targets, help us identify prospects to go out. And then we saddle up and go out and identify, is this a market that we can serve? Is this or do we have products that they need? And then we take that information back, we feed that back to the marketing department, and they continue to tune the messaging that they're working on to help us identify what that next thing is that we need to go after, and then equip our team to go after it. Once they figure this is the market, this is the product, now here's how you approach it, and here's how you go after it. And so they help us by doing that. Yes, they handle the websites, they handle advertising and PowerPoints and all those kind of things. But when they help us win new business, that's when they're bringing big time value to the organization and the sales team.
Do those interactions tend to be pretty smooth? I mean, this is like a big topic of debate over the last several decades. Marketing and sales, and sometimes they work well, and sometimes they don't. What's your experience?
My experience is really good. Where I came from, we didn't have any marketing to speak
Yeah.
of. The marketing department helps set up trade show booths, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So my experience with Sunsource has been very smooth. The aligned value or the aligned priorities within the organization, when everybody knows that their job is to help win another customer, then it kind of gets smooth because everybody's pulling the wagon in the same direction. There's no competing priorities necessarily that marketing wants to accomplish this and sales doesn't, or wants to accomplish something different. Everybody's got the same goal in mind, and they're all working together to meet that end.
That's it for this interview. I hope you got something valuable out of it. Of course, if you did, be sure to subscribe and rate this podcast on whatever app you use to listen. Also, share this with your colleagues and friends, and let's continue to have a deeper discussion on all things related to selling and sales leadership. See you next time in the Sales Lab.